Okay, this is just a quick video outlining the 6 determinants of gait theory and explaining what these determinants are. What are these 6 features of human gait? Well, it's first worth pointing out that this was originally proposed by Saunders et al. In 1953, so it's quite an old theory. And it is basically the negative to the inverted pendulum model's positive. Not to say that it's all of it's wrong, but it stands in direct contradiction to the inverted pendulum model. But nonetheless, there are certain elements of this that we can take from it, and it's still worth being aware of. So the premise of this, of Saunders and his colleagues, was that optimum human movement is facilitated through increased energy conservation and maintaining good balance, and that this can be achieved by optimizing these 6 features of human movement. So, what are they? Well, first and foremost, we'll start at the top and work our way down. The pelvis, as we know, can rotate about 3 axes of rotation, but the first is rotation about the vertical axis, so the pelvis rotating from front to back. We would call this medial and lateral rotation. So this is essentially a feature which allows us to increase our step length when we have a limb in the swing phase of the gait cycle and we're moving through hip flexion and knee extension. We're able to increase our step length thanks to an extra bit of pelvic rotation. The second is lateral pelvic tilt. Now, lateral pelvic tilt is sometimes referred to as pelvic obliquity. So the range of motion of lateral pelvic tilt is fairly small. It's about 10 degrees, I should say. In total, so 5 one side, 5 the other, roughly. And essentially, whichever limb is in the stance phase, so let's say in this case here, the left side, if we're looking at it from our skeleton's point of view, then if this limb is in stance, then this side of the pelvis is going to laterally tilt upwards ever so slightly. And then as we transition to the swing phase, then it drops down to allow the other side of the pelvis to tilt upwards. Our next feature then is knee flexion during the stance phase. Now, if we're walking, particularly the motion of the knee about the transverse axis, flexion extension, is fairly minimal in the stance phase. So we will flex our knee to about 15-20 degrees. Obviously it depends on how quickly you're moving to determine the amount of flexion, but there is a small amount of flexion there. Basically the knee is never at full extension, or shouldn't be, during the stance phase. So it depends where you read as to the average amount of flexion that occurs in the knee during the stance phase. The proposed purpose of this by the model or the theory that we're discussing here is to prevent the excessive vertical displacement of the center of gravity. You can do your own little experiment now by getting up and just walking across wherever you are, the room that you're in, without flexing your knees during the stance phase, and you'll see that well, you can see for yourself the effect that has on your gait. Our next feature, our next determinant of gait is, or refers to, the relationship between the tibiofemoral joint and the ankle, the cluster of joints that make up the ankle. So during a typical walking gait cycle, we make initial contact with the ground with the knee in a small amount of flexion, as I say, about 10 degrees, somewhere around that. At the same time, the ankle is either in a neutral position or is slightly dorsiflexed, I should say. There is a brief period of plantar flexion, and then as the amount of knee flexion rises, the ankle dorsiflex. Remember, this is closed kinetic chain dorsiflexion, where the knee moves on the ankle. And it is that relationship that this determinant is referring to. Number 5 on our list of determinants of gait refers to the relationship between the foot and the ankle. So the foot being everything underneath these bones here. So this would be the rear foot here, and the interaction between these bones is what is going to cause the ankle movement to occur, and of course the tibia and fibula. So the relationship between ankle and foot motion. And the final one, I made a mistake, we're going to work our way back up, is the lateral displacement of the pelvis. So not the tilt of the pelvis, not the rotation from side to side, merely the movement of the pelvis from left to right, essentially. So we need to maintain our body over our base support when we're walking in order to maintain balance, and excessive lateral motion from side to side is obviously going to make that more challenging. So just to recap, our classic 6 determinants of gait are pelvic rotation in the transverse plane, pelvic tilt or pelvic obliquity, knee flexion, I had to think there for a minute, the relationship between the foot and the ankle, the relationship between the knee and the ankle, and the lateral displacement of the pelvis. As I say, this is a theory that has certainly come into questioning, and I will I will attach a paper underneath if you're interested in reading up on this topic in any greater detail.